James Barnes Business. I am here today to talk GOTV, get out the vote. We're just a few days away from early voting. A lot's going on, and this is about three types of voters when it comes to GOTV, and then what your campaign did to identify those three types of voters. It's a super easy equation. So we want to talk through that a little bit. Those types of voters are your yes voters, your no voters, and your undecided voters. That's what you have. You're going out there into the wild as a candidate, and you could only have so many people vote for you. If you're running in a state rep race, you know what those boundaries are, and you know who those voters are. You have people that are unregistered. They're not your target. You have children. Excuse me, my eyes are itching a little bit. You have children, and they're not your target because they're not voters. But what you do have is, as a candidate, when you're focusing on, get out the vote, are, when you started running, you started asking folks some questions. And so we want to really, so the first part is, you got to know who your target audience is. It's a super easy equation. Once again, they're voters registered. That's who you really want to focus on. And then you want to understand, obviously, who votes in what elections, this being a primary election. You want to know which voters show up in primary elections. Because they are going to be where your money is best spent. You can spend it elsewhere, but it's not best spent elsewhere. So then it's showing that you're not taking this game seriously. Just joking. I say that you could do that, but I'm telling you, as a person that has clients, I have to advise them as the right way to spend their money and the resources, and it's never the hard thing, it's always the right thing. You know what I mean? And the right thing's much easier, believe it or not, if you know what that is. But so we'll step back out of that, know who your target is. We got to talk numbers. And then from that, once you know who your target is, and this is already done, this is not GOTV per se, this is prepping for GOTV. You can't do GOTV unless you prep for GOTV, because it's about your yes, no's, and undecideds. And if you haven't really prepped anybody and haven't asked anybody, and you're just assuming, then you're probably going to be kind of right with certain folks and way off base with others. And so your yes, no's, and undecideds are really critical. And you got to know how many you need to win. And so that was what you were doing these last few months, collecting that information. And so you turn around, and then you've been asking questions. Let's talk about the questions. Are you planning on voting in the whatever the election? This is a primary. In the primary election, it's a yes, no, or undecided. So if they're voting yes, okay, then your next question to them would obviously be can I count on your vote? And there's a little bit that goes into that. I'm giving you the fast version, and that's a yes, no, or undecided. So you're putting all your beans. You got your targets, and everybody else who's not registered is not targeted, and then you have your yes, no, and undecideds, and who's voting, and then from your targets, and then your yes, no, and undecideds. But also keep in mind, and I want to point this out. Question one: if they say no, they're not voting, you still got to convert them to a vote. If they say undecided, you got to convert them to a vote. And if you leave and it's still undecided and no, just leave it at that. Don't assume anything. What the voter said is true. And then also keep in mind, you don't own the yeses that you think you own. It's like one of the equations that people don't really understand is that just because somebody said yes doesn't mean you walk away and guarantee that yes is going to even show up, is going to vote for you, and all that stuff. So let's just make sure that we understand the true nature of your yes, no's, and undecideds. But like I said, yeses are your best bets. You know what I mean? Your no's, you don't want to chase them when it comes to GOTV. And so you got to know who's who going into the season. So that's the part two I want to talk about. So you got to know who's voting for you. You know what I mean? Or who's showing up? Because now you imagine people say, I'm not going to show up. And you're like, hey, come on. And then there's all these other people who are going to show up and vote maybe for you if you call them, but you're really calling the wrong person. So you just got to know there's a right person to talk to and a wrong person to talk to. I'll give you an example. I mean, it's an easy equation. If you're running as a Republican, don't be calling hardcore Democrats and say, vote for me, unless you have the relationship to do that. But also, I'll just keep in mind that's not going to be where your money bag is in this election. No matter what you do or who you are, you're going to have to stick with the known resources to be your most prized possession. And then obviously the fancy dancing, getting some new people converted, fine by that. But I tell you, it's not where you spend your money as a candidate. It just don't do it. So you got to know where your yeses are, your no's are, and your undecideds are. And then comes the day comes a day. And the fun part, I like to say, I wrote it down here. The fun part is I call it like the tea leaves or the secret sauce. Voters who show, I'm going to give you number one, voters who show up at the polls and during early voting are 100% likely to vote. I guarantee you that if you look at the propensity of some of those mailers you've sent and who they went to, those folks are, the likelihood of them showing up is probably in the less than 10%. And so you're sending a $2 mail piece, a $1 mail piece, and postage and all that stuff to people who, really are not going to show up. And you're spending an enormous amount of resources here, when if you understood that 100% of these folks are voting, then that's like, dude, that's secret sauce right there. Now, don't get me wrong, you have to catch them before, but just know these people are voting that are showing up at the polls. So we got that going for us, but that's not really the GOTV part. That's the poll working part. But the GOTV part is this part. Okay, we know who your yeses are, we know who your nos are, and your undecideds are. So here's where the secret sauce is. They will send a daily, or not send, there's a daily rolls that go out that who voted the day after. It's supposed to be posted. I forget what time frames it's supposed to be posted, pretty quickly. I will say though, this last season it was posted late, and it continued it was late, but at least it was posted. But the point I'm making is we daily can go look at who voted yesterday. We could run through that list, and we could look at who your yeses are and your nos are and your undecideds are, and we can see how they're showing up. And we could say, here's your list of who have not voted for you yet. They say they're going to vote for you and they haven't shown up. And so then you get them and you pull them. And this will make a huge edge. There's some elections that are just won by GOTV. It's a better turnout, even though maybe, and I'll be straightforward, you could be a worse candidate but have a better GOTV and win if it's a narrow margins on that campaign. So I just want to give this to you as a thought, so it's really, we're talking about yeses, nos, and undecideds. This is the last minute. It's nothing more than that. I don't care what they believe. Are they going to show up and are they going to vote for you? That's what we need to know. And then we can track. And on day one, you can look at who showed up on early mornings of day two. You pull out, you run your numbers against your yeses, and you're like, oh man, my yeses are outperforming my nos. Or even to say if you're tracking for the other candidate, my yeses are outperforming the other person by significance. Then you have some sense of where you're at. Or what if you're underperforming? Then you need to make sure your phones are being rung, and you need to do it anyway. If you're winning significantly, you still should be pulling your yeses into the campaign. You don't call your nos, because that's just not what you do. It's not your game. If you're running to win, then your game is not calling the other guy to come out and vote against you. It's not it. So you got to know who you're polling into the polls. So the GOTV means get out the vote, means get out your vote, not their vote. The undecideds, that's the second poll. So imagine this, if you had their phone numbers, emails, whatever, you know where they were, you go knock on their door, we could tell you, hey, they haven't voted yet. And this is day 2, and there's 11 days of early voting. And then there's election day. And so all that could happen if we do the first part first. You can track your people and you're trying to pull them out. But if you're in a contested race and if you're just pulling Republicans and saying, come out and vote, then which one? Which Republican? You don't know. So you might be just killing yourself if you're a candidate pulling the wrong person out to vote for you, and then they have no interest in voting for you. So GOTV does require diligence in understanding that. And so I got this last part, and I just want to say, like I said, I say here, we know, and we could reach out to who's voting. We'll give you have the edge. And this is something, this is no secret. Everybody should be doing this. Barnes Business has done this for years. We've helped candidates for years do this. Something I want to get back into. I think it's very important to have that edge. So I just say, if you're looking for an edge, this is GOTV is a way to get yourself an edge. GOTV, you got to do it. It's great teamwork, and it looks good. And if you're going to be an amazing candidate, why not? Why not? Look like you have a great campaign. Talk to the right people. Get them out to vote. Win. Just easy equation. You know what I mean? Anyway, on that, Barnes Business, get out the vote. Let's go.